morning, everyone. I hope you guys are doing so well. Today we are going to be talking about vitamin A per your request. Thank you so much for leaving that in the comments section below. So vitamin A is a very important fat-soluble vitamin. Like all vitamins, we can't live without it. We need it for growth, immunity, and good vision. The RDI for vitamin A is set at 900 micrograms per day for men and 700 micrograms per day for women. Those are measured in something called retinol activity equivalents, or RAEs, and it's measured that way because we have two options for getting our vitamin A as humans. Our first option is what most people do, which is getting their vitamin A preformed as retinols from animal foods. Our other option for getting our vitamin A needs fulfilled is through vitamin A precursors called carotenoids. The most famous of those carotenoids, or carotenoids, however you want to pronounce it, is beta-carotene. Beta-carotene also happens to be the carotenoid that is most efficiently converted into active vitamin A in our bodies. The vast majority of human beings are perfectly capable of fulfilling all of their vitamin A needs through conversion of the provitamin A carotenoids into active vitamin A, though we will talk about potential issues with that a little bit later on. But first, I want to start my day off vitamin A strong with breakfast. Alright, so here is breakfast. I soaked oats for a couple of hours in water and almond milk with a little bit of vanilla. And then as we talk about vitamin A today, you will notice some themes, one of which is the orange and yellow goodies inside this oatmeal. So this is Mammy Sapote. It's not very common in most of the world where you guys are probably watching, so I apologize for that, but it is a delicious tropical fruit down here, and it is dark orange, really beautiful. And then we have the mangoes, which are I think a pretty decent source of beta carotene. We have some kumquat, which I'm not sure about that. We're gonna have to look it up. And then flax seeds. There were a few chia seeds inside the oats, and then I chopped up one Brazil nut for each one of us for us to get our daily selenium. And then we had some leftover oatmeal pan cookies from yesterday, so I figured just go ahead and use those guys up. And that will be breakfast. Now that I am fueled up for the day, we can go over some of the differences between the preformed and the precursor versions of vitamin A and decide which kind is best to consume. So preformed vitamin A, or retinol, is found exclusively in animal products. That's because animals, just like us, convert precursor beta-carotene into active vitamin A. The tissues that are most rich in vitamin A for all animals are the eyes and the liver. If you've been on many paleo or keto blogs, they will suggest that you do things like eat organ meats or even eyeballs to make sure that you're getting enough vitamin A, which we'll find out in a minute is kind of crazy. On the other hand, the precursor carotenoids are found in plants. Specifically really colorful plants, especially the orange, yellow, and red ones, although dark leafy greens are an excellent source of carotenoids. You just don't necessarily realize that they're there because the bright green in the leaves cover up the color of the carotenoids. Preformed vitamin A, or retinol, and precursor carotenoids are fat soluble. That means that they're stored in fat, they're absorbed better in the presence of fat, and they build up in our fatty tissues. Now, when a lot of online health experts communicate that carotenoids require fat to be absorbed, they really go overboard with it and end up recommending that people eat like a huge amount of fat, especially refined oils, with their carotenoid-rich meals, but that is completely unnecessary. Research indicates that you need as little as like 3 to 5 grams of fat to drastically boost the absorption of carotenoids. So you really don't have to go overboard. You know, do what I did at breakfast and eat a few nuts and seeds, and that is more than enough to boost absorption. But this is where the differences between the two sources of vitamin A starts to get really interesting. Because vitamin A from animal foods, retinols, are fat soluble. They build up in the body. It is very difficult for our bodies to get rid of excess vitamin A. It can take a really long time for levels to go down. Provitamin A carotenoids, on the other hand, are converted to active vitamin A on an as-needed basis. So once we have plenty of retinol stored up in our livers and our eyes are good and our other tissues are fine, our bodies are going to slow down conversion of carotenoids into active vitamin A. And that's because active vitamin A can be really toxic to us. It's called hypervitaminosis. And it can be either acute or chronic. You would get acute hypervitaminosis from something like accidentally eating too much of a preformed vitamin A supplement. That's more common in kids or toddlers who might get into a pill jar and eat them thinking that they're candy or something. The other form of toxicity is chronic toxicity, and that would come from a slow and steady buildup of vitamin A within the body. This is surprisingly easy to have happen, especially if you are taking a supplement that contains preformed vitamin A. I know my naturopath put me on a mega dose of preformed vitamin A when she diagnosed me with hypothyroidism, and I have to say I'm really, really glad that I did my own research and got myself off of that supplement before anything too bad happened. The other common situation in which chronic vitamin A toxicity can become an issue is for people who are on something like a paleo or a carnivore diet and regularly include really vitamin A rich organ meats in their diet, like liver. People with chronically high levels of vitamin A can end up with liver damage, overcalcification of their tissues, and that overcalcification can cause kidney damage. Very interestingly, people with high intake of vitamin A throughout their lifetime actually have a higher risk of osteoporosis and osteoporotic bone fractures. In fact, here is a direct quote from a paper that is linked down below. Long-term intake of a diet high in retinol may promote the development of osteoporotic hip fractures in women. From a separate article, observational studies have suggested an association between high intakes of preformed vitamin A, reduced bone mineral density, and increased fracture risk. And in case you're a man and you think you got off the hook on the vitamin A, you didn't. A quote from another paper that's also linked down below, men in the highest quintile of baseline serum retinol levels were 20% more likely to develop prostate cancer than men in the lowest quintile. It's gonna be really embarrassing if I pronounced that wrong. So taking into consideration that in the Western world, vitamin A deficiency is like virtually unknown, even in people on vegan and vegetarian diets, that seems to me that the danger with vitamin A isn't from too little, it's from too much. Considering that liver and kidney disease as well as osteoporosis are some of the primary reasons we get taken out in the Western world. But I know that a lot of people do get concerned about deficiencies, even though there's tons of evidence to the contrary, and they end up eating really vitamin A rich foods. And then a lot of people do take vitamin A supplements, which is also a big problem. Supplementing preformed vitamin A, you have all of the issues with toxicity that we just went over. And then supplements of carotenoids can actually be a big problem too. In fact, studies that have looked at supplementation with carotenoids have found that mortality and disease is actually worse for the people who take the supplements. Those studies were designed because dietary intake of carotenoids was so positively associated with health improvements and health protection and increased survival rates for many diseases like cancer. However, in the studies that looked at the supplements, they found that that was absolutely not the case. Quoted from one of the articles linked down below, thus, it may be that beta-carotene and other carotenoids promote health when taken at physiologic amounts in foods, but have adverse properties when given in high doses and under highly oxidative conditions. So long story short, stick to whole plant foods. And speaking of whole plant foods, my carotenoid meter says it's about time for more. Beautiful beta-carotene and chlorophyll-rich smoothie for lunch. I've been on kind of like a oatmeal kick, probably because I ordered a 50-pound bag of it, and there's plenty of oats around. But I still do like to get in my daily smoothie for the kale and the turmeric and the ginger and all the yumminess. So this is gonna be me for lunch. I put a little bit of hemp seeds in here to just get a few grams of fat to really boost the carotenoid absorption. And this will be me for lunch. Which brings us to the part of the day that I find quite irritating. You may have been listening to my whole spiel about carotenoids being the best way for us to fulfill our dietary vitamin A needs, and you may have been like, but Lily, I read this blog on this paleo website that said that most humans have genes that make it really hard to convert carotenoids, and I think I might be one of them, and what if I'm dying of a vitamin A deficiency? Oh my god, I have to eat liver. Okay, so let's all just take a collective deep breath, blow all of that unnecessary stress and hypochondria out, and let's talk about this like rational adults. In fact, let's just scoot in here a little bit closer. Okay. Is this really an issue for most human beings? I would be lying if I said that all human beings have a 100% equal capacity to convert provitamin A carotenoids into the active forms of retinol. There are differences throughout humanity. Some of those are genetics. If you happen to be someone who has received like 2 or more copies of certain types of genes, you can have impeded carotenoid conversion. Mike the Vegan did an excellent video a little while back about carotenoid conversions and vitamin A issues, and he quoted some very pertinent studies that were extremely soothing. You know, most of these people who have copies of these genes, they're not vitamin A deficient. There are very few instances of people on vegan diets developing any kind of serious vitamin A deficiency, and if that occurs, it is generally speaking anecdotal, and it is in people who are eating very bizarre diets. Please don't be one of those people. So even if you're a person who is genetically predisposed to lower than perhaps average vitamin A conversion, I mean, I know that on most days I still eat between 500 and 1000% of my carotenoid needs, so even if I'm only converting like 20 or 30% of that, I'm still gonna be perfectly fine. Beyond genetics, obesity can be an issue for conversion. Now that could be because something about the condition of obesity, like the different hormonal profile, could somehow impede conversion of the carotenoids into vitamin A. Or it could be simply that because there's more fat tissue on the body, and vitamin A is a fat-soluble vitamin, that it somehow becomes diluted by the fat tissue on the body. Either way, again, I don't see evidence that this needs to be something that's of great concern for people who are switching onto a plant-based diet, because lower conversion rates does not equal deficiency. And finally, gut health. The intestines are where the majority of our nutrients, including carotenoids, are absorbed, and the intestines are one of the primary places where carotenoids are converted into retinol. Now, I'm being quite theoretical here, and I'm talking about people with serious gut health issues, people like IBD, people who have had serious surgery on their digestive tracts, or perhaps had a portion of their intestines removed. I am not talking to the YouTube armchair hypochondria diagnostic teams that I know populate these places. I know I've spent some time as that person too, but I'm not talking to y'all. I'm not talking to people who are like, oh, I farted an extra time today. I have gut health issues. But for people with real gut health issues, like people who are under the care of a gastroenterologist who is going to be able to advise them on supplementation, they might have something to worry about as far as vitamin A goes. And so as far as I can tell, from all of these like inane freaking articles that are making a huge deal out of nothing, we don't have much to worry about in the ways of vitamin A conversion. This just isn't something that the average person needs to worry about. There's just no evidence that that's the case. So unfortunately, I think us vegans are again just the focus of hyped up, clickbaity blog posts that never really needed to exist in the first place. Especially when one of the issues around getting too much vitamin A is irreversible liver damage. So now that that's out of the way, I'm gonna go give myself a quick ocular massage because I've been rolling my eyes too much while researching this whole topic. I'm just kidding, don't actually massage your eyeballs. That's not a thing. And I will see you guys at dinner time. I'm excited, it's gonna be good. Alright everyone, so this will be everything that I ate today. I have this big, beautiful plate of stuffed sweet potatoes, and the orange sweet potatoes are incredibly high in the provitamin carotenoids that turn into vitamin A inside our amazing bodies. In fact, these two medium-sized sweet potatoes right here probably contain about 500 to 700% of my daily needs for beta carotene. I also have some leftover chili on top. It's leftover from the Super Bowl nachos yesterday, which were so good. And then I also have some leftover nacho cheese, which is like the same recipe that we used in our mac and cheese video. It is delicious, 100% whole plant foods. If you want the recipe, you can head over to that video. And then I have everything on top of this beautiful bed of green salad. It's just some local field-grown lettuce, cabbage, other veggies chopped up. Of course, got some carrots, which are notoriously high in beta carotene as well. And then that is dressed with a little bit of black tahini. And then also in the dressing is a small clove of garlic, some sweet chili sauce, and a little bitty splash of tamari. Okay, so I will do the nutritional overview with you guys, get that knocked out. After plugging in all of today's food into Chronometer, I can see that I fulfilled my vitamin A needs and then some. In fact, I am at 3,606% of my daily vitamin A needs. Thank you, orange sweet potatoes. You have never failed me. And so even if I were a chronically low beta carotene converter, like so few of us are, I would still be doing pretty okay vitamin A wise. Thank y'all so much for watching. I always appreciate a thumbs up, and I love to see your all's comments down below. As always, make better choices for yourself. No one will do it for you, and take really, really good care. I will see you all next week. That'll be all. I have no idea how to turn off the camera now. Bye. Can you turn off the camera, Petunia? The button? Right there. Just no.